Hello world, Jimmy is a bot here. Going to go ahead and get started with what is going to be one of my first guides. This is a knowledge guide that I've been meaning to put together. I just hit 8,000 ecology points just a couple days ago here. You can see I have 8,005 total ecology points with 20% item drop rate. What we're going to go through today is basically all of the positives and negatives about knowledge grinding, kind of why I do it, and what we're going to be able to draw from this, what I would consider my tips and tricks, kind of some of the different parts of this. So just a quick overview. We'll go through pretty much all of the high-level reasons why I consider doing this. So like our ecology benefits, what you actually get from getting high ranks. We'll go through the actual item drop rate effect and like what that means, all the ways that you can get it. And then we'll go through all the different ways that you can actually get knowledge. So we're going to go through each of the different buffs, which I use when I grind knowledge. We'll go through the difficulty. I have like a full list of all the different zones, and I have a lot of information actually about where I had struggles, kind of some of the regrets that I had in my knowledge grind when I pushed 8,000, how I did that. We're going to go through kind of some like beginner strategy elements, kind of things I'd recommend to everyone, and then some advanced strategy items, which if you're really pushing for 8,000, I would consider taking advantage of these. So without further ado, let's get started here. So the main reason to grind ecology is if you grind, right? Because people who grind take advantage of drop rate whenever they're grinding for income. So when I'm grinding Star's End, for example, you can see that, Star's End is it's a higher level zone, but once you get to level 10, you have an increased drop rate here. It's something like 10% of the time you get an increased item drop rate of 50%. So it's very rare, but sometimes you get a little bit of drop rate from that. You stack that with your item collection score, which gives you 100% drop rate. You have things like +5 luck. You have general things that you can do like Adventurer's Luck, which is a tent buff that costs 50 million silver, or as low as 10 million silver. Basically, every 10% is an additional 10 million silver, and each of those is like an additional buff. So you got to consider all of this in kind of an additive sense, right? You get item drop rate from things like your value pack, right? You get 10, I believe it's 10%. No, sorry, that's in Korea, I guess you get a 50% item drop rate from your value pack, but we get it from our Kama Sylvia blessing. You get 20% item drop rate there. You can also get additional item drop rate from things like events. There's a drop rate event going on right now. If you're on the Arsha server, you get the 50% drop rate. You also get drop rate from a couple other things. I believe I have a couple examples, but one would be like a Supreme Old Moon Scroll. They give those out every now and then for events, but one thing they gave us recently for some maintenance issues, I think, or some sort of event compensation, they give us this GM blessing. You can see that gives me another 2.5% item drop rate, not a lot. But one of the most permanent ways to get drop rate, which needs to be mentioned, is the actual ecology. So you push H to get to your knowledge, and you have what's called ecology knowledge. It's like a subsection of knowledge in Black Desert Online. So what you can do here is look at each of these different sections, and as you grind through different areas, you'll find that different areas have different monsters, or they're sometimes called structures, basically different nodes that give you knowledge bonuses. And I can kind of walk through this at a high level, but the first part here is that you basically have different knowledge rankings. The first rank is that you don't have any knowledge. It'll just show up as question marks, which means you haven't killed the monster enough or received that knowledge for that given thing. Then you have a C rank knowledge, which means you can now see the HP of that thing as you're trying to destroy it, whether it's a mob or a structure. And then as you go up, you kind of start getting knowledge points. So this point system basically means that every S rank you get is worth 10 points. Every A plus is worth 5 points. An A is worth 4 points. A B is worth 3 points. And I believe a C is worth 2 points. I might be incorrect on this, but the general idea that I use is that an S will give you 10 points. And if you don't have an S rank, but you have something else, it's worth at least 5 points. So there's a big jump going from A plus to S, just something to consider, especially when we get towards some of the optimization with the advanced stuff later. So what I'm going to cover now are, some of the buffs that I use when I'm grinding knowledge. So the main one that you can use is what's called a Savage Draft. This is an important one to make sure that you're using this. They used to have ones called the Reliable Loony and Weenie Elixirs. They were dropped in Kama Sylvia when that came out. But now we have an even better elixir that we can use these days. So this is a draft. This will override your other drafts, so you can't like use like a frenzy and a savage, but it does give us some monster AP. You can see it gives a 12% chance to gain knowledge, and then a 7% chance to gain a higher grade knowledge. So generally every knowledge buff will give you this combination of higher grade and higher gain chance. So you combine both of these to kind of get the optimal chance at getting an S rank, basically. So the way that every mob works in the game, it has like a unique roll chance for each knowledge level. So you basically roll the dice and say, am I going to get knowledge? Yes or no. And then once you've qualified that, if you've passed that first test, that you've gone through that gate, then you have like a second roll. You roll the dice again, and then it says, okay, what knowledge are we going to give you? And most of the time, so for example, if you have an A+ in something, you're going to roll the dice and you might get knowledge, and then you might roll the dice and roll a B, and a B is lower than A+. So even though you rolled to get the gain of the knowledge, you actually rolled lower than what you currently have. So since the rework, which was I believe in 2018, anytime you are killing a mob or killing a structure, you have a chance to gain knowledge on it and improve your knowledge that you have. Before, you actually had to reset your knowledge, and there wasn't like an improvement process, so it got a lot better. That's also I think when they added item drop rate, so the whole system improved massively. So let me just walk through the other buffs. The biggest one is, like I said, that Savage Draft is important. You want to use a simple cron meal. That's kind of the main one people are using these days. You can see it has a chance to gain knowledge 10%, chance to gain higher grade is 5%. So you can stack that with your Savage Draft, use your meal, use your draft, right? Those are the first two. The next one, which is probably arguably the biggest, but it also kind of has a bit of a... It's a silver sync / pay to win sync, depending on how you do it. Are knowledge pets. So basically the rule is that any bird is going to give you knowledge. It's not entirely true, but most things that fly, except for like dragons, for example, will give you knowledge. And you can see knowledge because it's like this head with the arrow pointing upward. So it's like, oh, I've learned something, right? The higher tier you have, the more knowledge you get from your pets. So this is kind of my knowledge page. What I do is I only had a few birds. What some people can do, there's a really important one that I would recommend to anyone. It's always difficult to find because I believe it goes under all the pay to win stuff. Yeah, there's a crow. So this thing, you can breed it, right? You can get these off the market. Sometimes they're on sale. I think there was a lot of them around Halloween. But yeah, if you pick up a bunch of these, you can smash them together, get some tier 4 crows. But I've got most of my pets pretty easily, but the way that I like doing it is I have a tier 2. This is like an event bird that they gave us these. I think it's called like a cuckoo bird. Then I have like, this was a quest bird that we got, and then I smashed it with some other stuff. And then I have this owl. So those are my main 3 here. You can see that between all 3, I have 45% gain chance, and then a 9% higher. So this is a 45% chance to gain the knowledge, and then a 9% chance to gain a higher grade of the knowledge. And then I added in my other 2 pets here. You can see I have an item drop rate pet, and then I have a gathering pet. So I get some gathering XP, some item drop rate, and then I have that gathering proc, because a lot of the time you're gathering knowledge, you're actually literally gathering. So you could be like, for example, killing a mountain goat, and then after you kill the mountain goat, you can butcher it, you can do whatever, you know, if you're tanning or drawing blood, etc. You can do all those things, and then you have a second chance to get knowledge. So that's an important thing to consider, is that you might want to have gathering be like part of your grind. And one thing I'll get into later is a lot of times for knowledge grinding, you want to strategize. How do I do this one knowledge grind, but also accomplish some other tasks? Because Black Desert is such a massive game, and there's so much to do, right? So I'll go into that a little bit later. I'll be sure to review that. Some of the stuff that I talk about for buffs, they sometimes give out these chocolates. I don't think I have any right now because I just finished my 8,000 grind. But they'll give out certain knowledge buffs, so if they ever get any from like an event, make sure you use them sparingly. Kind of maybe do your research, maybe get a few thousand knowledge points before using those special buffs, because they're really good. The other one I didn't mention here is that you can actually get a guild buff. So I think I can show this here. Under our guild skill, you can see there is a knowledge buff. I may have to actually find it on this list. Where are you? It's up here. I know it's here. It's a pretty good buff here. It's not under these 3 actually. But that's life, combat drop. Here it is, I believe. Yeah. So endless exploration is a buff here. It's chance to gain is 2%, and then I believe you also get the other one here. So there's technically two different buffs, Endless Exploration and Scholarly Ambition. So if your guild has these, my guild never really had them off cooldown, so like I would request them, you know, a couple times a day. Say I grind for 3 hours. You basically like want to space it out, right? So if you have guild buffs and your guild's cool popping stuff for you, try and like space it out, right? Just do maybe a knowledge grind for like an hour, and then you like wait like 3 hours, do whatever. Maybe you're life skilling, maybe you're bartering, maybe you're doing some cooking, or even grinding, and then you go back and say, oh, I'm going to request another gathering, another knowledge buff, and then go ahead and use that. So one of the things with knowledge grinding is stacking buffs, right? You want to try and stack buffs and be more efficient with your time. So that's kind of the overview of buffs. The next section I want to get into is difficulty, and this is a really important topic, because if you're really choosing to do this knowledge grind, it's going to take you a lot of time. And having done the 8,000, having just finished it, Odalita just came out maybe a month ago, and the knowledge grind is much easier than it used to be. I actually have a friend who did this before Dregan came out. I've heard of someone who did like the knowledge grind like back in like 2016, 2017, and like they used all the manual resets and all that stuff to get it done. But now there's a lot of knowledge out there, right? I believe there's over 10,000 points of knowledge that you could get, and you only need 8,000 to get the maximum item drop rate, which is 20%. So how these actual brackets work is that every 1,000 points, you get 2% knowledge. So I believe at 7,000, you should have 18%. 6,000, you should have 16%. 5,000 should be 14%. 4,000 should be 12%. And then 3,000 should be 10%. And then basically it goes 2% each level, right? So you can work your way down. But the first couple thousand points should be really easy. If you've played Black Desert for more than like a month, I'd be surprised if you had less than 1,000 ecology, just from doing some basic grinds, maybe doing your Agris grinding. I'll kind of walk through all the things that I would recommend, like maybe just putting a little bit of extra effort into knowledge grinding. Because it really should be something you're kind of thinking of when you're doing your other grinds. You shouldn't be like, oh, I'm just going to go grind knowledge, right? Like that's something you do if you're like really trying to optimize. And like until you're at like 4,000 or 5,000 points, you shouldn't really like think of things in like, oh, I'm just going to do knowledge. Like you can do a lot of other grinds and kind of take care of knowledge while you're doing things. And I'll get into that in just a moment. So my general advice is that based on when these expansions came out is kind of tied to like the difficulty of getting the knowledge in that location. So in general, Balanos is going to be easier than Serendia, which is easier than Calpheon, which is easier than Medea, which is easier than Valencia, which is easier than Kama Sylvia. And then Dregan is kind of like, I don't even know if it's as difficult as Kama Sylvia, because I didn't have that much trouble there. But Kama Sylvia, Dregan, and Odalita seem to be kind of in the same range of knowledge difficulty. I haven't done enough testing to really determine the rates there, but I can say that everything before Kama Sylvia is way easier than everything after. Kama Sylvia I've had a lot of issues with, so I'm going to get into that a little bit later. For now, I want to talk about kind of the gateways to each of these knowledge areas. So Balanos you can do pretty much right off the bat. The only things that are going to be difficult for you is Cycrea Underwater Ruins, and the other one is the Cox Pirates, which just came out lately. They added the new Pirates, which is like a 280 AP zone. You need some DP to grind there. Probably like 320 on a DR build is totally fine. I don't even have some of this stuff, but you can see like I got away with doing a lot of my knowledge grinding without, you know, having 100% of everything. It's mostly just like, you know, you try and find like your floor of knowledge and you kind of raise that floor when the floor is like your level of difficulty. So you want to get all the easy stuff done first. And basically the more content that's in the game, the easier this knowledge grind will be for you. So we look at Cycrea, you know, like I didn't even get an A on some of this. Like you can see that for the most part, I do have a lot of S ranks on my knowledge. Like most of these are pretty much covered because in general, Balanos is super easy. I can get to some of the details on this, but if you guys have questions on this, feel free to ask in the comments. I kind of went through each of these mobs. I could tell you where they're at. The general process is I go to Google, I type in BDO knowledge and then the NPC name. It's like literally that simple. Once you've kind of gotten the knowledge for a given area, you should be in good shape, right? So just moving on here, the other areas that might be gated, Serendia is probably one of the very easiest. I kind of recommend this as a starting point. If you do things like Serendia Beast tab, the Plants tab, the Insects tab, like there's a ton of knowledge which you can just get by like going in circles in some of these places. And a lot of the times that means like, oh, maybe you're doing the main story quest, right? I'll get into some of the strategy in the next section here, but One thing I would cover now is that you don't really need gear other than like maybe Oasis gear to get through Serendia and most of Calpheon. Calpheon's kind of the next easiest because really the only things difficult here, I believe, are Star's End and the Abandoned Monastery. Everything else in this list, I believe, is like level 50 or below because it did come out a few years ago. It's much easier content. And again, the knowledge in these three areas, Balanos, Serendia, Calpheon, is a tier lower than anything else in the game. So next off is Medea knowledge. Medea knowledge is really important because you need to do it for the Medea Ecology specifically is useful for the Bartoli adventure log. So I happen to have a lot of this done already. You kind of have to have this done for, grinding that out for energy. So I kind of worked through this. It was actually one of the things I finished my knowledge on as well because I realized I had some gaps there that I hadn't touched on. One of the only things that I guess you could struggle with would be Kratuga Ruins, which does have like 5 or 6 mobs that are unique, which you will need probably about 261 AP with around 310 on a DR build is probably fine. Valencia, kind of the same story, a little bit more difficult for places like Akhman and Histria. Everything else is pretty much doable with Oasis. The knowledge here is a little bit more difficult, and some of it's really spread out. Particularly, the creatures tab is going to give you some difficulty because Valencia is massive. But also, there is a tab here called Akhman and the Ancient Man, which I have found some, there's like a lady who made a guide on these a few years ago, and her guides are still really relevant today. I believe the tab that I'm looking for is under, sorry, I have creatures here. We'll pull Akhman and the Ancient Man. Yeah, I believe it's Ordnance. Some of these mobs like Cassius, there's literally like one of this dude and he like wanders the desert. So I'll drop a link to her channel, in particular the video where she goes through some of these in the comments. You can see I'm like missing energy on this. Like I haven't perfected this because I never even did Valencia Part 2, so I think I haven't even gotten the mobs unlocked. So again, you can get a lot of this stuff without fully going through it. One other thing I'll look at here is the Kama Sylvia knowledge. And Kama Sylvia, I'll say that I hated it because it was so rough. There were some times when I spent like 2 or 3 hours to get like 1 S rank. And I'm like, why did I just do that? Like, because you challenge yourself and say, oh, I'm already at A+. I got A+ pretty easily. But that S rank can be so difficult, even with like 3 or 4 buffs popped. So the main ones are, of course, like you want to grind your locations that make sense. Like grinding the Navran Steppe, grinding Manshams, Miramach, like you might be doing those for XP, you might be doing them for the Infinite Pot. There's a lot of reasons you could be grinding Kama. But in general, I'd say like for Kama Sylvia, start by just getting your energy done. Don't go super deep into it until like you've really gotten your knowledge up to a level that you feel confident in. And I mean like your full knowledge, because once you start doing this, it's going to be pretty difficult. Faddis was a really good one though. Polys is pretty easy. Ronaros I got for the Infinite Pot, and then Giffen was actually really a struggle to get some of these S ranks. You just kill like hundreds of mobs and you still don't get anything. So again, I'd really hold off on that. And then Drigan, there isn't a whole lot of knowledge, but these points help massively towards getting S ranks. And again, a lot of Infinite Pot stuff here too as well. But you can see I'm like missing some that are like, why didn't I ever go for this? But anyway, you'll kind of have that feeling. It's like, man, how have I not gotten this knowledge already? And anyway, you'll kind of see that. Odalita, I don't have enough information to really give advice on it. You can see I haven't really been to the Turos location. I haven't been to Owen Valley, and I haven't been to... I killed like 3 mobs at Thornwood Prison. So I've really kind of just touched on Thornwood Forest a bit, and the rest of it I really never got into. But you can probably pick up a bit. Maybe 300 to 500 points there. Maybe upwards of 700, 800 if you do those really high locations. But those are like 300 AP. So, proceed with caution. So I think that kind of wraps up the difficulty of this, because you really do want to kind of start at the bottom, work your way up. I'll get into some of the beginner strategy. We just have a few things to go through here. We're going to go through kind of some beginner strategy, advanced strategy, kind of other strategies that I implemented as I was grinding. So the first one I kind of have hinted at as I've gone through here is to make sure you're grinding ecology while doing other things. Very important concept. Doesn't seem super obvious sometimes because you're like, oh, I'm going to do knowledge grinding this weekend. I'm just going to grind out knowledge. But sometimes I'd really advise to people just like kind of change up your gameplay a bit, like try and focus on like a different goal than what you're maybe tunnel visioned on, and say, I'm going to go, get my Agris points up. I'm going to make sure my Agris, maybe I'm going to just increase it 1 level. And then maybe I'm going to try and get 10 hours done in the next week on my Infinite Pot grind. And I'm going to go focus on, I haven't been to Ronaros or Shiro Ruins. Like, there's different things you can kind of focus on depending on what it is. Maybe it's a weekly for a seasonal where you want to grind Shiro Ruins because it's a low AP zone and you happen to have a new alt that you're working through there. So there's a lot of excuses you can kind of use to get yourself into these spots. And one of the other ones I'd advise is just like when you're income grinding, and like that doesn't seem super obvious, but you can make a lot of money grinding a lot of these places, and sometimes it's fun just to change it up. So I'd recommend, going to a spot where, yeah, it makes sense that you could make maybe 150 mil an hour. Like if you've never tried Wargons before, or like maybe you want to go to Centaurus and you've really never been there, but you heard you can get a lot of crystals there if you pop a loot scroll. So some people will do that, and then they can, kill these new mobs. They'll be like, oh, I didn't know there was this chest structure, and then that gives them another S rank, and they pick up 10, 15 points there. It gets really easy. I kind of mentioned this before, but gathering is a big one for knowledge. Pretty much every one of these tabs you'll see has at least like a beast tab. A lot of them have what is also a plants tab. They'll also have things like creatures of Northern Calpheon, creatures of Calpheon. So many of these, that's 4 tabs basically, have a lot of gathering involved with them. Sometimes it'll be like a crab, right, that you can mine. Sometimes it's a sheep or a goat that you can, butcher. You could do like a wolf that you could skin, feather wolves, things like that in Kama Sylvia. But in general, sometimes I'll pop like a life buff with this, and I'll say like, I'm going to use my time here. I'm going to actually, I have enough AP. These things don't hit hard. I'm going to go pop a life scroll. I'm going to pop my tent buff for life skilling. I'm going to use my loggy accessories, and I'm going to request the guild buff for knowledge, but I'm also going to request the guild buff for life XP because I'm doing this gathering leveling while doing this other knowledge grind. So you can combine those things and get a lot of gains out of it. The other one is the treasures. I did mention this as well. If you're working on infinite potions, that's a really easy one to tackle. Like just for the HP pot alone, there's 3 primary different locations you can go to. So for the HP pot, you can go to the Bloodwolf Settlement, which is Cagtums. You can go to Sherkon Necropolis, or you can go to Ronaros. And then during the event, you have an alternative spot you can use. So for the Bloodwolf spot, you go to Kadgeries. For the Sherkon, you go to Proddy Cavern. And like Proddy Cavern, just to throw an aside here, one of the best spots for like just picking up the easiest knowledge ever, but it's actually 7 mobs here. So you get like 70 plus points just from grinding out Proddy Cavern. It's a cool place. It's underwater. You can get some red shards there. Pretty good, right? And then one other thing is, that Ronaros place, Ronaros Forest in Kama Sylvia drops the 3rd potion piece, and then the alternate is Sakria Upper, which is like super easy. These are all like level 240 AP or so or below, so like you can actually tackle quite a bit there without really getting too deep into the weeds, right? So that's kind of the summary for the potions. The same thing exists for the mana pot, same thing for the archaeologist map, same thing for the compass, right? So there's actually probably a dozen, 15 or so during the events of different locations that you can grind, and those are all new spots. They're all places with different knowledge, and a lot of the times it's actually just grinding, like actual difficult grinding, like Nagas, Fogans, all these places. Like you could just literally go around your map and say, I'm going to go grab during the event, for example, the archaeologist map, you can grind basilisks instead of going to the Roud Sulfur Mine. But, you have an excuse to grind all these different locations. And, knowledge level won't help for things like getting knowledge. Your node level won't help for getting knowledge, but it will help to get drops, right? So you can kind of work on some of these nodes. You can try and increase like your map awareness, trying to get more nodes unlocked. This whole thing that I think I kind of would recommend to beginners is that one of the easiest things you can do in this game to grind ecology is actually grinding energy. So if you focus on just getting this baseline ecology on every single different node type, that's how you unlock energy. So for example, if you want to go through and get like maybe 200 or 300 energy, you just go to your Medea tab and you look at this, like this is 4, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 20. So it was like 20 energy just grinding Medea, right? And a lot of this energy can come pretty quickly. I like just filling the gaps, right? Saying like, oh, what am I close to getting? Well, this area, I'm only missing 1 mob and it'll give me 3 energy. Like some of that stuff is a good reason to go find a new mob, get that taken care of, right? So that's kind of the main thing here. The other one that I guess my last strategy for actually getting knowledge done while doing other things is the main story quest. So when you have this Chenga Tome, A lot of people will just raise alts up to level 61 doing this quest line. You basically do the main story quest all the way through Medea. That'll get you to like level 56. Then you just do some Chenga Tome questing, and then you kind of loop your way around here, go down through Drigan, through Kama Sylvia, and then to Drigan to get to 61. And doing that, you actually encounter tons of mobs in the main story quest. Pretty much everything in the Balnos region. You get your goblins and altar imps. You get your and there's like a million different types of imps, right? But you'll get the altar imps are down here. You basically work through everything in Serenity. You can get through your castle ruins. You go through these different quest lines. You choose your different crossroad, and that'll get you different paths. So if you raise a few different alts, you can take all these different crossroads. You get lots of different knowledge, some of it just by talking to NPCs. A lot of good stuff there that you can do. So I recommend using that main story quest to kind of focus on knowledge while you're doing that. Because really, like, why not focus on knowledge when you're grinding castle ruins? Be like, oh, like there's actually these two structures that I should just hit here while I'm here. So you want to try and take care of knowledge while doing other things. Very simple message, but it's kind of worth a lot in the long term, especially if you plan on grinding. So that's kind of it for the beginner stuff. I will go through a few of the advanced concepts I wanted to cover here. Just kind of general strategies that I use, which are probably a little bit over the top. Let's see. Yeah, we can start with what I would call these are really optimized, but one of the strategies that I use is I'll actually hop servers sometimes for certain NPC knowledge or certain structure knowledge. So one example would be in Helm's Post, right? There's this thing called I think it's like the Forge, Helm's Forge, Tribal Forge or Tribe Forge, something like that. But there's like 3 of these nodes, and they're like a 2-minute respawn. There's other examples of this. I know one of the most popular is the Kama Sylvia has this rhino. It's like up on this hill above Manchams, and there's like one here and then one up near like the Freda Hamlet. And what you'll do is you'll kill this thing. You could do some life skilling there, but you can use your 15-minute cooldown because each of these mobs is on a different server. Each of the structures is on a different server. So you can kill it on Velia 1 and then immediately hop to Velia 2 and it's already respawned. So you can kind of mix in some of your strategies with this server hop strategy. It's just one optimization that I do. It's not perfect, but it's something you can take advantage of, right? Another one is what I call like a knowledge loop. This is a pretty obvious strategy, but BDO is kind of built around rotations. People kind of say like this is the pack order that you should kill, and like, you know, based on the respawn times, this is the most efficient route to kind of grind these mobs. And you want to do a similar thing with knowledge. And what that means is you could say, I have S rank on 9 of the 12 mobs in this location, but there's 3 mobs that I'm missing knowledge on. And what you'll do is you'll go to, you know, your map. You'll try and identify, okay, maybe this is Castle Ruins, right? I just did this maybe a couple weeks ago. You could take, say you're missing the flag, you're missing a scout, and you're missing, maybe you're just missing those 2, right? So you basically map all the flags and scouts that are around, and then you say, how can I grind this most efficiently so that I'm just killing flags and scouts and getting every single mob so that I am not wasting too much time here. So that's just one strategy. You kind of mix in more mobs as you need them. Sometimes like you'll eliminate the flag, right? And then it's just scouts, and now like you don't have as many mobs to kill. So you're gonna have to think of your cost benefit analysis of how much time you have. Because again, like, everything you're doing for knowledge grinding should be around this concept of like your item drop rate, which is your end goal, right? As a function of how much time you're spending, how much income you're getting while you're doing it, how difficult it is, of course, which factors into the time. And then, of course, how much you're actually kind of gaining on it. Like if you're getting XP, if you're accomplishing another task, like those are important things, but you want to make sure you're not wasting time. So like if you have 1 rank left, it might not be efficient for you to go for S on that. If it's just one thing and it's in a difficult spot, especially for like Kama Sylvia, I had to give up on some of these because things like the Kama Sylvia Horn Deer, there's certain NPCs here that are just so difficult. Like the Poacher was extremely difficult. I spent like 3 hours killing the forest bat, which is like inside of this cave. And I would literally go into, this is a different strategy, but I would actually pop all my buffs and then I'd kill the bats that fly down. There's like 5 or 6 of them. You gather on all 5 or 6 and like, then you log out and then you like wait 5 minutes and then you kill 5 or 6, do the same thing. And then do it one more time and then you server hop and keep doing it. And I did that for like 2 hours one time. And it literally took me 2 hours to get S rank. But was it worth it? Like probably not, right? Because I should have been doing more of this knowledge up in the first 3 zones that I mentioned earlier. One other thing I'd touch on here is NPC knowledge. So this is, again, kind of more of an advanced strategy, but there's some NPCs. I'll give Serendia as an example. I know a few of these off the top of my head, but in Glish, there are 2 NPCs that you can go to that'll give you knowledge if you have enough amity with them. The first one is the stable keeper, Alan. So you get you play this amity game with them. What I do is I go to Google, I look up the NPC name, you look up the amity. You basically follow the little rule in this corner, and you basically can get 80 points in 2 amity games. It's really simple. If you have any questions on that, feel free to ask in the comments. I can also address that one. And I believe the other one is, it's one of these NPCs over here. I'd recognize it by name, but basically, yeah, one of these is for the cobweb, and the other is for a spider. And once you get enough amity, you only have to do the amity game once, but once you get enough amity, you can spend energy to unlock knowledge. And this is actually ecology knowledge, so it's really important for your grind. And the thing is that knowledge will roll, and it might not be an S rank, but what you can do is there's 2 methods to reset knowledge. The first one is you can go into your loyalties, and you can look up what's called the Elixir of Oblivion. So this is 25 loyalties each, which isn't a lot considering you can get 100 a day. I think I have a few just chilling right now. Yeah, I have a couple that are left over. You can basically pop those to erase the knowledge immediately. If you have a little bit of time and you happen to have a character in Calpheon, this NPC, Annalise, I believe that's her name. She's in the library in Calpheon. Yeah, there she is, Annalisa Rosie. So you can, work your way to her, but she's in the top of this Calpheon library, and she can actually reset knowledge for you. So you can just spend, I think, 10 energy and she'll reset it. I used to do that back in 2017 when I started because I wanted S ranks on pirates. Because again, there's actual perks that you get. For example, having an S rank gives you more drop rate on that NPC. Having an A plus, I believe, gives you more damage. As you work your way up, you actually get more out of it. So there's even defensive bonus, I believe, at the B rank. So having knowledge at a high level is actually good for grinding a mob in general. So at least now you don't have to reset your actual mobs, so it's not as big of a deal. But it's you're grinding something, you're gonna get good knowledge on it eventually, especially if you have simple cron meal popped. So I think that's most of what I had to cover for strategies. Yeah, again, it's kind of just making sure that you're not wasting a lot of time. Get your NPC buffs done, because those are really easy. I saved mine for the very end. Literally my 7 to 8k grind is when I got all of those done. Don't reset your boss knowledge unless if you're confident that you can get it back from the NPC. I'm 99% sure that Garmoth, for example, you get from an NPC, but you can't reset it. So don't reset your boss knowledge unless if you're absolutely certain that you can get it back, because that is a risk. So don't blame me if you reset your boss knowledge and you have to get it now by killing the boss, because that's a whole different issue. That's probably really difficult. Again, try and utilize things like loops to include other knowledge that you're missing. Try and do multiple things at once. Maybe you're actually just getting knowledge, and then you actually go gather, some plants in bear or something. There's a lot of knowledge that you can do that's really close by other activities. You can also hop to other characters, go to lobby if you want to preserve your buffs in order to wait out the respawns. Sometimes you might even go to a new zone. So when you're grinding orcs in Serendia, that's one of the harder knowledges in Serendia. You can actually go up to bandits while you're waiting for the fire cannons to respawn. But some of those things can take a couple minutes, and maybe you can just run up there and take care of some other knowledge while you're at it. But yeah, I think it's important to remember that ecology and energy are really tied together. So I do have 438 energy, and I haven't really ever tried to grind energy. It just kind of happened. So that's kind of one perk of doing it. And of course, if you're a long-term grinder, having that 2% is going to serve dividends. The longer that you grind, the more valuable it is. And I'm a huge advocate of the infinite pot, the infinite health pot, as well as the archaeologist map. I've done a lot of work to get those in the past, but those were 2 that we accomplished pretty much in the last few months. So anyway, I think that's it for my ecology grind. I hope this was helpful to you guys. This is kind of my first full guide that I've done based on some of the experience that I've made in the game. If you guys have any questions about ecology or specific mobs, I'm happy to help. I think I know pretty much where every single knowledge mob is in the game that I've covered. I might be missing a few things here and there, and some of the stuff above 300 AP I'm not really qualified to talk about. So you might have to go to someone else for that. But anyway, I do stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/JimmyIsABot. I'll put a link in the description. That's kind of my main channel right now. I'm just getting into YouTube. But if you guys like the guide, feel free to like and subscribe. It is my first real guide, it feels like, and it wasn't super challenging for me because I spent so much time on the ecology guide. on the ecology grind. And yeah, it's an important thing to kind of accomplish. If you're planning on grinding for the long term, I highly recommend doing this. So hope you guys have an excellent rest of your day, and thank you for your time. Cheers, guys. Bye.